Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Astrology and Consciousness Support live stream. My name is Robert Cosmar, and I am an astrologer, and I'm also a teacher of what I call higher conscious awareness. And those of you that are watching me this morning so far, if you'd be so kind as to say something in the chat window, let me know if you hear me okay, and if you're seeing me, I would appreciate that to start things going on. Okay. And I'm broadcasting both on YouTube and also on LinkedIn this morning. I have the option of going either with LinkedIn or with some of the other platforms, but I no longer belong to the platform Twitter, or X, as someone would like to call it. But for those of you that are able to see me, Dallas, good morning. Okay, great. Excellent. It's always nice when I'm able to set this thing up and I don't forget something. And as I've said many times before, it is a challenge sometimes to be able to look at everything that goes into making this work and not have to go through restarts and things of that particular nature. My main thing today that I would like to do, as I always try to do, Monica, welcome. Okay. What I would like to do is to ask you how you're doing and what are the main things that you would like to be discussing in this chat. This is a support live stream where, with myself and also with many others that are very aware and awake in this particular live stream, can share their experience. The biggest issue, which I think we would all agree, has to do with fear and coping with fear and understanding why things like meditation, for example, are so important when it comes to dealing with fear. So maybe some of you have questions or you have things you would like to share in regards to how you deal with fear. You know, this past week, we have seen other things begin to escalate. The situation between the United States and the Ukraine does not look good right now. Trump blew up on Zelensky in the White House, and of course, that's big news. And on a positive side, a lot of judges are basically pushing back on all of these changes that Trump and Musk are trying to just pass through, with the idea that nobody can resist what it is that we're doing. So, how do you cope? What is your mechanism, so to speak, to be able to deal with a constant bombardment that 6 months ago we pretty much were of a mind that, well, Kamala Harris is going to win and this whole nightmare will be over. And what we see happening is that the nightmare ended up winning. And it's important how we deal with that. Okay. And it's an important lesson that we're learning because of it. Okay. And that main lesson, important lesson, that what we have to come to grapple with is the realization that much of what you see going on is totally emotionally based, along with imagination, along with inner negative perception. And we also have the circumstances of the network news, whose basic motivation has to do with money, adding fuel to the fire. So it makes it very difficult sometimes, if you're on the internet or if you watch TV, to come away and not feel a little bit dirty. Okay. Or that whatever you felt, okay, when you got up in the morning and you went to meditation, for example, or prayer or whatever you do, you just realized that it evaporated and you wondered what happened and what do I do about this? Okay. All right, Stephen, welcome to the broadcast. Good to see you here. Okay. Okay. Um, the thing about what happened yesterday, of course, I'll try to give you an idea about how I've come to terms with this. And it was a surprise when it came to me, but it came to me in a process of meditation and in an experience of interacting with some other individuals that I communicate with about what's going on. Okay. Um, we have been so conditioned with the idea if things don't go and in alignment with our particular views, that can't happen. That shouldn't happen. That's not right. We can't let that happen. And then if it does happen, all right, the other thing is how do we cope with that? Okay. How do you cope with the constant uh, bombardment on the internet, on the news, okay, what for all practical purposes we think is unfair, not right, in some cases evil. All right. How do we cope with that? How do we deal with that type of programming? Okay. What does our higher self want us to do about that? Which is probably the most important question. All right. And what I'm basically saying here is overcoming. How do you overcome the feeling that we are losing our values as a country and a world, that we're seeing things happen where we feel like control is being taken away? Okay. That the reputation of the individuals that are primarily in position to do this are very questionable. You may have seen here lately on the news too, where they found out that Donald Trump had visited the island of Epstein's Island about 7 times. And of course, those of you that know about Jeffrey Epstein, you know about what he was into, sex trafficking, and the fact that he, quote unquote, committed suicide. All right. So, how do you, okay, Dallas, thank you. Meditation and cooking. Um, Out of curiosity, Dallas, can you explain what is it about the meditation that you find helpful to you? Okay. What is it within that process that you notice that allows you to separate yourself, all right, from the impact of the negativity? All right. And what I'm referencing here is what experiences have you basically gone through that transcend your mental and emotional body and have allowed you to realize within inside of yourself that you don't have to be contaminated by what you see and hear. Okay. CC, welcome to the broadcast. Okay. So those are the real important things, in regards to what I feel that I would like to see us deal with here. Kind of the meat and potatoes of how you are coping and how you are dealing with a situation that seems to be getting more and more out of control. It hasn't gotten to the point where it's widespread life threatening. All right. There are questions about exactly how far and how much, okay, harm has been done other than what you see in the news. Okay. And other than what other people speculate. Okay. Okay. And do you notice, Dallas, for example, that in your meditation that you find a place of separation where you can let go of the negativity of your mind and your emotions, a point of separation to where you experience a sense of peace or an expanded awareness? Okay, Monica. Okay, feeling completely drained, trying to limit my time online as my energy level is at an all-time low. With so many changes taking place, it's hard to stay away for long, and I'm CA there. Okay, not sure what the CA is. Let's speak to that, Monica. All right, I want to try to give you some perspective. I want to try to give you a little bit of understanding. Okay, What you're doing in limiting the amount of time that you spend online listening to the news is a very wise choice. Okay. Dallas had mentioned here a little bit ago about meditation. All right. let's talk about let's talk about this a little bit more in depth. All right. The reason for meditation, the higher purpose of meditation, is not simply just to give you a sense of separating yourself from your mental and your emotional, let's call it turmoil. It is to expose to you in your awareness an identity within you that transcends the person that you believe yourself to be. Okay? It is to transport you into a realm of certainty consciously within inside of yourself that separates you from the illusion of this life. Okay? When you reach a point consciously through meditation where you are able to reconnect through your feelings with your higher self, in that moment, you realize that the person that you have been imagining, the role you have been playing all of your life, is not you, and it is not permanent. Okay? This is why what we see happening in the world is going on and why it is so intense. Because the universe wants to shake us free of the imprisonment that our mind, emotions, and our ego place upon us, so that we feel like we're victims. And this is what's happening right now, even to many of you who maybe are aware and awake, is that you feel like that you're consciously aware and you think you know what's happening, but you still feel like you're a victim and you're a prisoner, and you're not. But mentally and emotionally, if you haven't separated consciously from this lower conscious sense of your identity, you still feel the after effect of what it is that you see and what it is that you hear. Okay, Vivek, good morning. Okay, welcome. All right. The news is drama, yes, fear, but knowledge of what is happening outside of politics is helping me cope. Studying astrology has been my coping mechanism, and yeah, it is a great tool. Okay, we are so much more than our physical worlds. Okay, and Monica, I normally meditate, can't control my anger at what is going on at the moment. I have started cooking. Okay, well, let's go into this a little bit deeper here. You're kind of, hitting around in the area where I feel like we can really benefit. Okay, those of you that are here in the broadcast today really benefit from this type of interaction. Okay, if you are finding it difficult and you are aware and awake to deal with a constant bombardment of what you see happening on the news and what you may feel as being unfair, it's not right, it's dark, and it's evil. All right, that's kind of the spectrum that we all go through. All right, you are still contaminated by fear. You're still holding on to fear. All right, you're still caught up in that illusion that the mind and the ego create that keep us prisoner to our lower conscious self. And this pressure that you see going on is it's like we're regurgitating our fears. Why is it being regurgitated? Because our higher self wants us to see it, to acknowledge it, and then to let go of it. All right. And I often use this as an analogy. Remember a time in your life where you went through a crisis and you were absolutely devastated. You may have broken down, have a nervous breakdown. You couldn't believe that it was happening to you. Okay. And somewhere in that experience, you had a moment of clarity to where you understood why it happened, and it changed the course of your life. This is what the universe is doing right now. It is forcing us to come to terms with our fears, our unconscious fear that has kept us in the role we have been playing, maybe for lifetimes. Okay. And everybody wants to be free, but they're not quite sure what that means. Okay. Up until now, probably all of us have been doing what we thought we wanted to do or what we felt like we needed to do. But it's debatable to the extent to which we know who we are. Okay. To find that true person, that true path. Okay. All right. And Monica, do you deal with your fear in meditation? Do you talk to your guidance and your higher self about that fear? Okay. I'll try to give you a little bit of an understanding here of my relationship with my guidance and my higher self. Most of you know that in 1971, I had my first experience of cosmic consciousness, and I didn't know what the hell it was. In fact, I didn't know what the hell I was. I became a Pentecostal minister for about 5 years. Okay. And I learned that that wasn't it. But here's the deal. When you awaken to the realization that there is a depth in you, a conscious depth in you, whether you call it your guidance or whether you call it your higher self or the teacher, once you consciously establish and recognize that relationship, you begin a lifelong process of dealing with what we would call your karma, your fears, your anxiety. Okay? The benefit to that relationship is that you don't go into that fear without the support of your guidance and your higher self. Okay? In a therapeutic situation with a therapist, a person may have the benefit of having a person who's a therapist there with them to deal with trauma. Okay? But you can lead a person to the water, but you can't make them drink. And this often is what happens in therapeutic situations, is that the therapist cannot truly bring the healing unless the person is ready within themselves for that particular healing. Your higher self, in a sense, is wanting to take over the life that you have been living because it was not a real life. It was a false life. But you have to consciously come into a realization of that relationship. And there has to be a level of trust, trusting yourself, trusting the universe to guide you through whatever you need to. And in that revelation, you begin to see your life from a much higher perspective. This is going to be one of the biggest difficulties for people right now, okay, is that we look at Trump, we look at Musk. We don't like what they do, admittedly, all right? We don't like it. But what we fail to remember and understand is that these men are tools of the universe, okay? They are there for a purpose and a reason, all right? And if you hold on to fear and anger about what you see happening, about these individuals, you are chaining yourself to a different future. Okay? This is why forgiveness is so important. Ruben, good morning. It's good to see you here. I wish that there were ways that I could communicate to you, and I try to do this, the things that my higher self and my guidance have taught me over time in my relationship with my guidance. Okay? And you will find this too. And you probably, many of you have found this at different times within yourself. Once you've gotten beyond just the point of just having little intuitive, spurts or telepathic communications, and you actually have an established concrete relationship with your guidance. Okay? That reality and that truth is far removed from probably anything you can imagine. You will look at the world differently. You'll look at yourself differently. You will know instantaneously truths that even the stuff that's been out for years on the internet, do not touch and do not encompass, they're going to discover. I was thinking this morning about some of the old channeled material that came after the harmonic and a lot of it was kind of, of joyfulness and stuff. But then I began to realize, maybe one of my guides was telling me, humanity was not ready for the truth. Okay? Nobody can teach you what is true for you. Nobody can give you that truth. That is a private, personal relationship that you will have with your higher self and your guidance, and that you must have with your higher self and your guidance. Okay? Otherwise, you become a follower or a believer of somebody else's experience, and you do not want that to happen. You want to awaken consciously to your own inner revelations of the truth. That's the only way that you will accomplish. Okay. I'm going back up here and try to see what I missed. Okay. Melissa, thank you for being. Okay. I'll try to explain something to you. Again, this will not be easy. It is not easy. Okay. To divorce yourself from the anger, the rage, the fear, uh, the hatred of Donald Trump and Elon Musk, but to allow that hatred to control you is to bond you to fear. All right. The moment that you can accept that these two men are being guided by the universe in their particular truth to bring about global change, that fear that you're holding on to will be let go. Okay? Understand this, that your fears, 99% of your fears are your imagination. And that imagination is fueled by what you see on the internet and by what you hear on the nightly news. Could those horrible things happen that happened in World War II? They could. Okay? I won't deny the fact that those things could happen. All right? But you have to look beyond your imagination and to establish your conscious identity outside of your lower mental and emotional and imaginative identity. That is the true purpose of meditation. It is to break free consciously from the oppression of your ego, which is your false identity composed of your mind, your emotions, and your imagination. Okay? Once that happens, you begin to experience what has been told, through the centuries as a form of enlightenment, not ultimate enlightenment, but an aspect of enlightenment. Okay? So this is the pressure. The pressure that people are feeling, the pressure that you are feeling is holding on to a fear that your imagination has created. All right? Not realizing that there really is no good and evil. That is kind of a judgment that has been created by mankind. All right. There is an energy called the universe composed of both light and darkness, equal in a sense. All right. Being of a higher conscious level of self awareness than the other. Okay. So, to help yourself to deal with a lot of the things that you don't like going on, and I know it's easy for me to say this, but it's a different thing for you to realize this. But when you do, you'll come to an understanding consciously that everything that is happening because the universe wants it to happen. All right. So that humanity can evolve consciously to a higher level of realization of who we are. And one of the things, too, that I'll say about this, too, and some of this I'm going to say has to do with what you have heard, maybe you've had this programmed into you through your life about the book of Revelation and the Bible and the end times and stuff like that. Okay. There is so much This is why your higher self is causing us to awaken, okay, so that you can embrace a truthfulness about all of this polluted by either somebody else's book, imagination, teaching, and things of this particular nature. You can only know what is true for you by, okay, beyond the role that you have been playing throughout your lifetime. And as I mentioned earlier here, at a certain point in time, often it'll show up in your horoscope, but not always. Okay. You consciously awaken to different levels of realization. Awakening is not just a little peekaboo. All right. It is a full-blown conscious elevation of your understanding of life beyond the level that you have been embracing and accepting up till now. If you feel empty, if you feel incomplete, if you feel lost, okay, you have not found your true purpose and your true path or your higher self yet. Okay, because once you have, you will know. Okay, nobody will have to tell you, nobody will have to sell you anything. Okay, you will know, and again, I can go back to that Bible phrase, I think that oftentimes I've mentioned, and you shall know the truth and the truth will set you free. That phrase, that actual phrase, didn't have to do with beliefs at all. It had to do with a conscious realization of what they knew and were taught as the Christ consciousness. Okay? It is a knowing beyond yourself, beyond your mind and your emotions. Okay. All right, hon. I noticed on here that every once in a while I'll get a warning where it'll tell me on the above the screen here that there was a dropping of the connection. I know the connection's pretty strong back here, but if something happens on the network where the computers are that Restream is, that happens. It's a burp. Okay. And let's see here, Vec. But deja vu, is this an experience of our higher self? The only answer that I can give you on that, when you go significantly deep enough into your higher conscious state, you in space do not rule everything. Okay? There are many, and I'm inclined to believe that everything that is happening is preordained and predestined. May be happening already in some of the dimensions. Well, I can say that, and there are moments, when I've had clarity about it, but I haven't been in those dimensions for that. It may be a bleed over. It could be an alternate dimension. Something that prior to being in this world, that before you forgot it and became okay. Oops, connection. Well, we had a burp. These are some of the things that you have to experience. They cannot be taught. True higher self-knowledge cannot be taught. It must be experienced. It must be a conscious revelation. Okay? And this is where the awakening is attempting to take us. And it can be very painful at times. And it's very humbling because at times what it does is it makes you realize that maybe you were wrong. Maybe your perceptions, okay, maybe the perceptions in your awakened knowledge or your perceptions in your astrological knowledge were not accurate. Okay? That's a tremendously humbling experience to know that maybe in the total perspective of what you have been doing, you didn't have it quite right. You weren't totally wrong, but you didn't have it quite right. Okay? And This is something that is going to be very challenging to all of us because what we're seeing is against all of the programming and all of the wishfulness that we have been programmed into thinking about, and if you go back and you take a look at what people have been saying forever about, the new age and about a bright, beautiful future to come, where everything's honky dory. And now we have to deal with what we're having to deal with. Okay. Now the Bible did talk about, the 7 years of tribulation and that type of thing. So we can't just kind of throw that out the door. But what we see going on, okay, for those of us that are aware and awake, it's quite troubling because of the fact that it makes you realize that no matter how aware and awake that you say you are, you still have fear. Fear of the future. Okay. Fear of your life being taken out of your hands, your control. Maybe even fear of your life. Okay. Which I'm sure that whole process people went through prior to World War II because they did lose their lives. Okay. And hopefully that will not be the situation that occurs now. Okay. But you don't know. You don't know. Nobody really knows. The only thing that we really know for certain is the fact that at this particular point in time, consciously we are being shown that we're not quite there yet. The good part about it is, though, is that what is happening is to try to assist and help us in the process of becoming more consciously aware and awake. That gives us an empowerment. All right, now I'm going to take us a little bit deeper. And I can only speak about this on a certain level because I haven't experienced this completely. The further that you wake up consciously, the further that you embrace the totality of who and what you are. Okay? As you pass through revelations, conscious revelations about who you have thought you were into who you actually are, you'll notice that your outer world changes. You'll notice that things that you have been dealing with and seeing over and over and over again, maybe your entire life, that you don't have the same circumstances. Okay? You may feel luckier. You may feel more joyful and wonder, how can I feel joyful when everything is going on around the world that I see on the news, which is not reality yet. It's the imagination, okay, of the writers and the news people and stuff like that. But we forget that because we're so used to trusting our mind and our emotions and our imagination and believing that's the only reality that exists. That is not the only reality. Okay? The person that you have been conditioned to be, that is not the only reality. Okay? And this desire for empowerment that's talked about often by many teachers and many individuals, this is simply the conscious remembering of everything that you were before you decided to become a human being. All right? And that ability to co-create with your higher self includes a new life. All right? Or a life that is not hindered by fear or judgment. All right. When you begin to understand and realize that all the things you have gone through, the painful things in particular, were to help you to wake up, to become more conscious and spiritual, then you begin to understand that nothing in your life has ever been done to harm you. It's been done to help you to wake up, to grow, to become more conscious. Our hard shell ego identity that shell has to be cracked. You have to crack an egg to get to the inside, okay, to cook the egg. The same thing applies to us. The universe has to crack the outer ego, that egg. Otherwise, we won't realize what's inside of us. Okay? Anybody have any comments? You were doing pretty well there for a while, commenting and stuff. And I know I get on a roll sometimes and I have to follow that energy, but the main thing is, as I said in the very beginning of this particular broadcast, is how are you doing? How are you dealing with what's going on? How are you dealing with your fear? Okay. I'll find myself at times being sucked back into the pollution. All right. And then I'll find when I go into deep meditations, I begin to consciously remember what my guidance has shown me or my higher self has revealed to me. So it's not like I'm totally clean and void of all the circumstances that you're going through. The case. Okay. All right. Anybody have anything they want to pop out there onto the screen that we can discuss? Vec, did I cover your question about deja vu? And again, to go back to what I mentioned a little bit ago about this, once you establish your true relationship within yourself to your higher self and your guidance, these things will be revealed to you. Many of these answers will be revealed to you when you're ready for them. Okay? And of course, all of that also has to fall in line, okay, with your karma, fate, and your destiny. All right? That's something that you have to keep in mind. That's something that, as an astrologer, that most of my work and my readings really is focused upon, is what is going on in your chart that shows me that your higher self is attempting to take you to a higher conscious path of realization. All right. That is when I get the most satisfaction out of doing readings, is to help you to understand that if you're going through some issues that are difficult to understand, that your chart will be showing you that you are being essentially stripped of those illusions and being given the opportunity to consciously evolve. Okay, Dallas, at some point we have to accept the reality of being a human, not constantly chastising our life, but discover who we can be and where we are meant to go. Okay, Kachinala, I wondered where you were. If we can cry, it can be a release. It shows us we are in pain. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to toss something out here. I'm going to be bold here, and I'm going to toss something out to you. How many of you in your meditations have come to the realization that you are God? I'll be curious to see how you respond to that. Okay. Beck, the connection was spotty, but I think I got it. Thank you. Gotta go, volunteer. We'll watch the video later. Thanks again, Robert. Thank you, Beck. Good to see you here. How many of you have come to the revelation that every human being on this planet, consciously at their core, is what we call God? If you have come to that realization, then you know that the life that you have lived, you have created, and that the only way that you will heal from the pain of what it is that you have been going through is if you will learn to forgive yourself for everything in your life that you created because you wanted to grow and you wanted to know something. You wanted to learn something. You wanted to break the chains. If you haven't, okay, Monica. All right. Christ consciousness, Kachinama. All right. Two good points here. All right. Monica, I'm going to say this a little bit differently to you. Okay. Do you see this as a personification of a deity, or do you realize that you are consciously a part of something that is very infinitely vast? Okay. You see, most of the world and most of the world's religions, if there is a hindrance to their growth and their conscious healing, is that they project outwardly into the form of a being called God. All right. And in doing so, they disassociate within themselves, okay, from the process of needing to take responsibility for their life. In other words, they will pray to, quote, a deity or God, hoping, believing that that will forgive their weaknesses or whatever, but they won't actually go within enough through meditation primarily to discover where the wound is and that the wound needs to be healed and that they have the power to do so. Okay, and Kachinala, Christ consciousness. You are already aware of this, I'm sure. All right, Monica, conscious part. Okay, it's a very important distinction, but it's very difficult for many. Okay, because it is an experience consciously that you have to actually have, and we're not taught to think of that way. We're not taught, and again, throw into this the circumstances around this idea of good and evil. Okay, which rather than being embraced as a part of our total being, okay, we have created a dualistic system of beliefs, saying that, oh no, that other stuff, that dark stuff, that's something, that's Lucifer. He made me do it. Okay. When it is something inside of us that is not exposed and needs to be healed. And until you take that responsibility, you cannot heal that issue. Okay, Ruben, meditation has helped me so much navigating these troubling times. Excellent. Okay, Melissa, I'm very actively interested in bringing my small and town together as a community, rural town. All right, that's possible, Melissa. It could be your purpose. Okay. Is this something that you have come to within your own inner awareness? Okay, or just something that you feel like that you need to do? Okay. Well, Ruben, I think that, as far as your overall happy, bubbly energy, that was a gift that you came with. All right. Kachinala, return to innocence. Yes, the innocence, the conscious innocence where there are no beliefs, there are no opinions, there is no imagination, there is just the pure conscious connection. I've used this analogy many, many times, and I'm going to point this out because it illustrates what it is I'm trying to communicate. Most of you know what the tarot card, the Lovers, is. You've seen it. And of course, you oftentimes, when you choose that card, it often indicates an interaction of a loving, nature with some other individual. What you may not understand is that the two people, the two individuals, the male and the female, okay, and then beyond that, there is the high priest. All right, this is a symbol of higher conscious union, wholeness. You have the woman who symbolizes the feeling nature, and you have the man who is the masculine ego nature. For there to be love, egos have to be surrendered. Okay? All of us who've been in a relationship know that if you take an ego into a relationship, it's probably not going to last very long. And that surrender is the great teacher of revealing love through a relationship. So that tarot card is essentially showing that it is the feelings and the logic or the reasoning, okay, surrendered in the situation of love or holy matrimony, if you want to use that as an example, is what leads to this higher conscious revelation of the truth. Okay, that's one of the mysteries of that card. Okay, let's see, Melissa, I'm working at creating improvement projects that citizens can join together and not church related for all the good of the community. That sounds very good. And if you feel within your heart that that's where you're being led, then that's where you want to go. Okay. And if you stay focused within inside of yourself to your inner guidance, okay, you will eventually create what it is that your purpose is. Okay. And this is probably how this is going to go. You see, there can be no significant, real, powerful change until we realize our true identity and our true power. You will not be able to see the effect in the outer world that the change within you is actually creating what it is you're looking for. Okay. And to find that, we have to transcend above our mind and our emotions and our imagination, so that the revelation, the true revelation, the higher revelation of who we truly are begins to manifest. And that's when things get to be very interesting. That's where, maybe through years you have struggled and you have fought in a relationship or in a career or whatever, constantly stumbling, falling down, wondering what you're doing wrong, very miserable, frustrating type of experiences that are common to all of us. All right. But in that moment, meditatively, where you make the conscious breakthrough away from that older, tortured image built upon judgment more than anything else, all right, you realize that you are your own jailer and you have been carrying the keys all along. All right, think about that for a second. You and I, we are our own jailer, and we have to set ourselves free consciously. Okay, and let's see here. Monica, I'm making what I call emotional threads, giving them to anyone needing the support. All righty, Monica, well, share what you feel within yourself. You're being given. Okay, the things that I write about over in the Substack. And by the way, if you may have noticed this, I changed the title of my Substack publication from Knowing Whispers, Messages from the Universe, to Wisdom for Those Awakening. So if you are a part of that over there and wondered what happened, it's because I changed the actual title. I felt that title was more significant. Okay. And let's see here. Melissa, we are not wealthy, but unity can give us a common purpose. Yes, definitely. And Dallas, my spouse and I just had our 38th anniversary yesterday. Happenstance. We are both 12th house Gemini. Not an accident, our destiny. Excellent. Okay. And thank you, Dallas. Appreciate it. Cachinella, emotional intelligence for self and others. Again, this is one of those things that is hard to put into words, but it's one of the things that I think that most of us that are here are aware of. There are certain individuals you're drawn to. There are certain people that resonate with you, okay? And that they become people that you work with or you want to work with in some way, shape, or form, all right? And that as you continue to evolve consciously within inside of yourself, you begin to realize how common it is, that bond that you feel, that there is something maybe that you are together to do together, or something that you will do together. Because in a moment of revelation, you'll understand why. Okay? That is the big thing, is when you know why. Okay? Okay. Okay. Very true. Very true. And yet, with the world the way that it is, it's hard to imagine how that's going to happen. It's hard to imagine how that's possible. Okay, even what's inside of yourself, on a day-to-day basis, as you have moments when you feel consciously very tuned in, and then maybe you go through an emotional slip, within 24 hours, and you realize that you're not maybe as highly evolved as you thought you were. Okay, you at times wonder, okay, how could it be? I mentioned this at different times when I've done these live streams. Years ago, I worked with a Deep Trance channel. And we got together a group of people, and she would channel this entity. Okay. It was a very profound experience, extremely profound experience. And the thing that the entity kept telling us when we would give our responses, which weren't bad responses, they just weren't as highly evolved. He would say, "You think, you think." Okay. And this is one of the other revelations that you'll go through is that all of the time we carry within us an impression, an imagination about how we think things are going to be, how we think we are going to be. The truth of the matter is, you have very little to any idea of who you're going to become and how things are going to be. Okay. And when it comes again to dealing with situations that are going on right now, the big challenge for all of us, okay, is to learn the lesson of forgiveness, because what is happening, even though emotionally we may not like it, is for our good. It is for our healing. It is meant to help us to see life in the universe in a much different way than maybe what we thought. Okay, let's see here. Okay, Dallas, this happens to me all the time. Doubt can be debilitating. Yeah, and Dallas, like I said earlier in the broadcast here, I'm not on the mountain all the time. Okay, I'm not on the mountain all the time. There are days when I'm in the valley. You can ask CJ; she'll tell you about those days where I'm in the valley. Okay, so it's a part of the process of us being shown what needs to be dealt with. Okay. There are days when I go into meditation and it's just like I get a free pass and it's like, whoa, There are days when I go in and it feels like I'm carrying this huge load that I can't shake off. All right. And the temptation is to go, well, today's not my day. I'm not going to meditate. But in doing so, it's like I'm admitting to myself, okay, I don't want to deal with whatever this issue is. And that issue will come back. All right. And you have to be willing to be taught by your guidance what the issue is. And you have to be willing to accept the lessons that are brought your way, which sometimes are very painful, to show you what it is you're avoiding. Okay. That shell, so to speak, has to be cracked. Okay. The ego has to be cracked. Okay. If we are to experience our true inner nature. And adversity is one way in which the universe has set things up so that we would experience this. Kachinala. Okay. Collective consciousness, happening, rolling, love, mindfulness, important. Very true. And if you remember that particular, I don't know if I've got it over here, but maybe I can here in closing. I can go ahead and pop this up. I had a little graph that I got, and basically it was called the triangle of higher consciousness, I think is what I had. Hopefully I'll find it in here. I'm scrolling down through a list of things that I've got over here. I guess I maybe didn't load that up. All right. Trusting yourself, trusting your higher self, accepting whatever comes into your life without judgment. All right. To progress consciously further in your awakening, you have to be willing to realize that you can trust the universe, you can trust yourself, that you must accept, even if your emotions don't want to, everything that happens is for a purpose, and that you must do so with no judgment. All right. If you can exist at a level of those three things, you will be in constant communion with your higher self. And you will see a world and a life that is much different than the one that your emotions are painting for you right now. Realize that the world that we are imagining is simply that. It's a possibility, but it's not a reality. Okay? And that if we are to see a change in this outer world that we see right now, there has to be a change in humanity. There has to be a humbling of humanity, which is what's really happening here. Okay. And you can see here that my partner, CJ, she said absolutely. And I'm gathering that she is referring to the fact that I have my off days. Okay. And it's her support and her love, and it's the wonderfulness of our relationship also that makes what we're doing possible. She is the love of my life. All right. Soulmate. I don't often use that word, but we know what our connection is, and that's what matters. We know what we mean to each other. We know that you just can't go out and find that anywhere on the curb, you know, and that, as they say, we had to kiss our own frogs along the way as well. Okay, we're at the end of this hour. I hope that something of what I shared and said touched your heart, gave you some comfort, gave you a sense, okay, of direction. This is why I'm doing these. And at times it'll vacillate between astrology and consciousness. But the real meat of this entire process here is around your opening up and sharing. Okay? Taking a risk, being vulnerable. All right? That is the only way that you really grow. Okay? You have to get in the game of life and accept life. Realize that all the things that are happening all the time are your higher self helping you to evolve, helping us to evolve into a, quote, better future. All right. All right. I will see you next Saturday at 10 to 11. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for those of you that attended today. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to take this conversation, much deeper. There will be many things happening, disturbing things happening. Don't let your imagination and your emotions and the negative thoughts about them ruin your day. Okay, Kanchanala, thank you so much. CC, thank you. Dallas, thank you. Okay, and Monica, thank you. Melissa, thank you so much. And we will see you next week, same time, 10 o'clock.